All right, so Caitlin, let's start by telling people where you are right now, what your current position is, and you are one of the top executives in a women's soccer league, correct?
I am. First of all, thanks, Dusty. It's good to see some AU friends always.
Absolutely.
No, I am in Kansas City, Missouri. I'm at the headquarters of the Kansas City Current, and I currently am the general manager of the club here.
So for people who may not necessarily know what a general manager does, because a lot of people, I think, just go, well, they pick the coach and they pick the players. It's not that simple, is it?
No, it's not that simple. And then we also have a setup here where like our head coach is also our sporting director. So he's thinking of like the entire philosophy of the club long term, like playing style, recruitment, how do we build systems, player development, all that. So like that's when him and I are very equal as far as like he doesn't report to me, I don't report to him. We both report to ownership. And Vlatko Andonovski, for those who don't know, is our head coach, one of the most historic and best coaches in the history of this league. So we're very fortunate to have him here. But yeah, so there's definitely roster management, but there's just so much more that goes into it. There's a staff of people that report up through me in regards to like medical and performance and operations, equipment, all of that type of stuff. And then you just have your, everyday fires that we all have to put out when you work in sports, where it's you never know what the day's going to bring. That's partly why we do this.
Absolutely. So let's take you back some time ago to back in high school and when you were playing in the Columbus area. And how did you end up becoming an Eagle?
So I've heard this version of the story. So I will fully admit that it's hearsay, and someone would have to confirm with our previous coach John Hall on if this is in fact what it was. But I was playing in one of the high school games, your normal situation, went Tuesday night game under the lights in high school, and Coach Hall allegedly came to watch one of my teammates and scout and recruit them. And while I was in the game, he was like, actually, I think I kind of want to talk to that player. And so left a business card with our head coach, and then I made a phone call, and I think a week later I was up at AU doing a training, just joined in training, and then did a visit in like January, and I was like, yeah, I'm in. Like no other school recruited me for soccer except AU, and that's where I ended up going, and couldn't be happier about it.
You'd be surprised how many people I talk to that say, I wasn't being recruited. They were talking to my teammate, and B, that Ashland was the only school that recruited me. That happens all the time. Yeah,
it's one of those where I like to tell people, like, you never know who's watching your game when. That's why it doesn't matter who the opponent is, what the situation is. You go out there, you put your head down and you do your best, and you never know what'll come of it.
Absolutely. So you were part of the end of the NCAA tournament run here. We had at Ashland 8-9 years in a row at the very beginning of our program. 3-time all-conference, still one of the top goal leaders in our program history. So what was it like for you to kind of continue that movement of the women's soccer program in that NCAA era?
It was one of those where we had won, 8-9 conference titles in a row. And it was, there was definitely a pressure and an expectation, but also that's what you ask for. That's why we play. It's not fun to go, be terrible or beat everyone all the time. Like, we knew we had a target on our back, and we knew that we had a legacy to uphold. And it's still one of my, I think I gave up a penalty kick for a game that we ended up tying. And then that's how we lost conference my junior year. And I'm still not happy about it. It's 20 some years later, but knowing the legacy that was built amongst, some of those players that were All-Americans, Jen Barnelli, Becky Richards, Christy, Richie, like all of them, you're like, these are just phenomenal players. I mean, I just played with Maria Manzo. She was an All-American, also from, the Central Ohio area. So knowing where they had started the program, what the foundation was, and wanting to build upon that was definitely something that was in the back of our minds as we tried to, set the standard of what Ashland University women's soccer should be.
And our head coach now, Caleb Polino, uses the word standard all the time. So how much are you able to kind of follow them with what you're doing right now?
It's very similar. In fact, the club, Kansas City Current this is our 5th season. So, it's not a 15-year, the league itself is only, I think, 13 or 14 years old. And this club's only been here since 2021. And this is, our second year with our, leadership between Vlatko and myself. So, what we said last year was we're going to lay the foundation of who we want to be and how we want to play and how we want to do things. And then go from there. So it's very similar as far as like, all right, what is our standard? What is the foundation? And the only way to go is up. And again, it's never, we all know it's never an easy trajectory. It's never straight up. There's always, it's up and then it's doing that motion. And so we know that's how it is. And, I'm used to that from being at AU. You lose a game, you tie a game you shouldn't have tied, you have an injury, you're not selected for a match, any of those things are just hard, setbacks that you deal with personally, and then how to apply them into your life after you leave college.
Absolutely. So how did Caitlin Carducci go from Ashland University to the NWSL? Because I know there have been some stops along the way.
There have been some stops. So my immediate stop after going to AU was I went to law school at Ohio Northern University. I was very fortunate that they let me, have a very small part in their women's soccer program. And the main reason why I, made a phone call was I loved being around my team at AU. My teammates are still some of my greatest friends. I talked to Ashley Bigelow yesterday. She was my roommate freshman year. I had owed her a phone call for a very long time. And I finally was like, gotta just, set aside all of the to-dos that we all have and prioritize people. And so went to Ohio Northern and wanted to just, again, have that team atmosphere. And when I was in law school, I realized my favorite thing about law school was coaching soccer. And so how I was able to take that law degree and turn it into a world in sports, in those, 15 years ago, as a law student, you really only saw three options in working in sports, whether it was be an agent, try and catch on like as a general counsel somewhere, or get into NCAA compliance. And I took the compliance route. And then it really is just a series of network and phone calls and people thinking of you and you putting yourself out there. And, ended up coming here to Kansas City in November of 2023, was planning to just be the director of soccer operations, behind the scenes, some of those nitty gritty, check the box, do things really, really well. And then ended up finding myself as the interim GM about 5 months into the season last year. And at this point, we've got a great staff around us. They've put a lot of belief in me, same with our ownership group. And, I'm just proud and happy to be here as we try and, win a championship.
Well, I was reading your bio earlier today, and Al King, who was your SID back then, is the athletic director now. And it would be a big mistake if I didn't mention your running exploits. Yes. So please tell the audience about your avid running.
I will. So I'll tell the audience, aka Mr. Al King, about my running exploits. I also remember Al training for Boston year over year. So no, when I was in law school and I had to every now and then, jump into training to even out numbers or just, someone's injured or just whatever else, I was like, man, I got to stay in shape. But I was, a poor law student. And so it was one of the few times, even after being, a soccer player for my entire life, that I was like, I think I can get into this running thing. And then it just turned into one of those, like, I bet I can do a half marathon. And then you run a couple half marathons and you're like, what? I think I want to try that full marathon. And then somehow the person who in high school used to have debates with their cross country coach about why stretching was important. I've run 10 marathons. I've hit all the Abbott major marathons. Hit that last one about 2 years ago, and running's my happy place. It's the time when I can get the most thinking done, and it's one of those where I don't take my phone with me. So it's one of those where it's the few times I'm either asleep or I'm running, are pretty much the only times that people can't get a hold of me. So, but yes, no, I know Al. I hope Al is still out on the streets in Ashland. Everyone catches him. Okay, good. I was gonna say everyone catches him getting his run on, but I'm sure that at some point I told him he was crazy for running a marathon. I'm certain that I gave him that look. That was like, okay, yeah, sure. Gonna go run for a couple hours, and now I've willingly done it, 10 times over.
I will ask him if he remembers that conversation. We'll see if that was a thing. So on all these Eagle Rewinds, the next to last question I always like to ask everybody is about your family, how much they've supported you over the years. So fire away.
Oh, so my family. So I have 3 sisters. My 2 parents, they're still people that I talk to every single day. Especially now, they're so incredibly supportive of I'll be off the radar for a couple days, and I'll just get a proof of life text coming in that I can respond to. So they're great. And then I have to give a massive shout out to my fiance John. that man he has, I have turned him into a soccer fan. Not that he was anti-soccer, just one of those where it's like he knows every single team in our league. He knows players, he knows styles, he knows substitutions, and also knows that there are going to be many, many weekends and nights or just dinners that are interrupted by phone calls that I have to take, and he takes it and supports me and makes sure that I'm, sleeping and eating and doing all of those things. So no, family is the most important thing out there. This job is, I hope I have this job for a very, very long time, but regardless of how long I have this job, my family is going to be a part of my life forever. So cultivating that and making sure that I'm enjoying and embracing those relationships are key.
Well, the final question we always ask in these, and Caitlin, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been a blast. If you have anybody in Kansas City, hopefully this happens at some point, but their kid may be thinking about coming to Ashland, a soccer player's thinking about coming to Ashland, what would your sales pitch be?
Oh, man. Ashland is the place where you can learn who you are. It's a small town, but it is an embraced university. I know that things have gone from leaps and bounds facilities wise since I was there. And then, what the last plug has to be the food. I hope Convo is still serving ugly bread. I've been dying for a piece of ugly bread for again, 20 plus years here. But no, I would encourage anyone to go to AU. If you want to have a good college experience, but then also have a fantastic athletic experience, don't think that D2 is less than. It's exactly what you need it to be and what you want it to be. And look at some of the major alums that we have playing professional sports or just involved in anything else out there. Like if you dream of excellence, AU is going to help you get there.